Secret treaty, huh?
Keep me posted. January 5th, 1940. There are two major invasions in progress this week, though half a world apart, and the responses just now are straightforward. If you can't beat 'em, join 'em. But if you can beat 'em, beat 'em. I'm Indy Neidell. This is World War II. Last week, the Finns had some more big success fighting off the Soviet invasion, but a counterattack of their own was a failure. Hitler and Stalin sent each other Christmas greetings, a policy reversal that many take serious issue with, including Chiang Kai-shek. Here's what followed. 10,000 Japanese launch a counterattack in China's Shaanxi province, trying to relieve the nearly surrounded 36th Division. They are driven off by the end of the week. In the Guangzhou region of southern China, Chinese forces take Longshan II, Guandu IV, and Qingtang V. Still, in spite of the Chinese advances made all across the country the past few weeks, Chiang Kai-shek's offensive has mainly turned into a stalemate. But there's more going on behind the scenes in China this week. Okay, Wang Jingwei had served as Chinese prime minister in the early 1930s, despite the fact that he and nationalist leader Chiang Kai-shek disliked and distrusted each other. Wang left his post after nearly being assassinated. Since the war with Japan began in 1937, he has been extremely pessimistic about China's ability to win a military victory. And the idea of China being destroyed by the Japanese or the establishment of a communist China are anathema for him, and he thinks that a just peace with Japan is not only possible, but the only real positive outcome for China, since then Asia can resist the Western powers, whom he believes to be the real enemy. He also thinks Chiang Kai-shek has betrayed the nationalist cause by allying with the communists to fight the Japanese as a union, as they are doing now. But just negotiating with the enemy had gotten Wang kicked out of the Nationalist Party a year ago this week, on January 1st, 1939. Then, during the spring, he'd wangled a trip to Tokyo for more talks, but that was a disaster. The Japanese made it clear that a regime run by him would be only one of many separate Chinese regional puppet regimes under Japanese control. The Japanese would demand economic and military control of China as well. However, with Japanese military defeats after the summer showing that China wasn't going to go down as easily as the Japanese had thought, Wang was looking more and more attractive as the year reached its conclusion. And after November and December negotiations, an agreement is signed this week on the 30th to create a reorganized nationalist government with its capital at Nanjing and led by Wang Jingwei. This secret treaty is very one-sided and has all kinds of concessions like with coal and iron for the Japanese. And northern China, which is now under a provisional puppet government under Wang Kemin, is still to be kept separate. Well, Gao Zhongwu, who's also been trying to negotiate peace and is now slated to serve as vice foreign minister under Wang, manages to photograph the treaty and get away with a copy. Disillusioned by the Japanese going back on all they'd earlier promised, he makes the terms of the treaty public, terms that include the Japanese still keeping troops and advisors all over China. And this is a big propaganda coup for Chiang Kai-shek. He can use this secret treaty to show that Japan has no interest in a genuine partnership, just a master puppet relationship. And since Chiang is the real prize for the Japanese, they do not send an ambassador to Nanjing as Wang starts building his government, because that would imply official diplomatic recognition. Wang is not the only one, though, who thinks that his country cannot defeat a currently invading power. Max Hastings writes, "The Finnish government never deluded itself that the nation could inflict absolute defeat on the Russians. It aspired only to make the price of fulfilling Stalin's ambitions unacceptably high. This strategy was doomed, however, against an enemy indifferent to human sacrifice." I mentioned the fighting in Finland at Suomussalmi last week. The Russian 163rd Division that had been surrounded and cut off was not even really a fighting force anymore. The 44th Division was supposed to move in and save them at the end of last week, but they ended up not trying. The order was cancelled. Now, 2 Finnish battalions ski over the ice to where the 44th is on the Raate road, mainly positioned on a 5-mile stretch of the road, but with platoons every eighth of a mile, securing it all the way back to the Russian border. Tanks patrol between the platoons. The Finns attack the head of the whole column, which causes the Russians to dig in, as the Finns had planned, which gives the Finns time to regroup all the Suomussalmi forces for a new attack. On New Year's Day, that attack begins. They cut the road and fortify the breaking point, and then attack the Russian columns pretty much only hand-to-hand. So the Russians can't use heavy artillery, and all the horse-drawn units add to the traffic chaos on the road. The tanks aren't any real help either, especially once the road is cut and mined. The Finns even use the tanks as cover. Soviet air power watches helplessly from above, since any attack would also be an attack against its own. The Soviet troops aren't even really in any condition to fight by this point, and many have reached the edges of starvation. General Vinogradov refuses to order the retreat though, since he himself has not received higher orders to do so, but finally does on the 6th, so tomorrow. This is the men's situation by then. The men no longer had the strength or spirit to break through. They panicked and ran, or were shot down in shelters and dugouts without an attempt to escape. It was later learned that the Soviet troops had been without food for 5 days in temperatures of 30 to 40 degrees below zero. A lot of quotes today. Max Hastings writes of Karl Maidans, a Life magazine photographer, who describes a battle scene like this. The Russian dead spotted the ice crust. They lay lonely and twisted in their heavy trench coats and formless felt boots, their faces yellowed, eyelashes white with a tinge of frost. The forest was strewn with weapons and pictures and letters. Here were the bodies of dead tanks with blown treads, dead carts, dead horses, and dead men, blocking the road and defiling the snow under the old black pines. Most of the 44th Division are killed or freeze to death, but 1,300 become POWs. A captured Russian colonel has this to say: "For whom was this war worthwhile? And for what? We had no idea of a cause. What can we possibly offer you Finns that you don't already have? The Finnish worker is better dressed than the Russian communist official." The Finns have captured quite a booty by now. From just the 44th, they get 43 tanks, 200 trucks, 100 machine guns, 6,000 rifles, over 1,000 horses, 46 artillery pieces, and 29 anti-tank guns. That's not even counting all the stuff from the 163rd. Hand in hand with that, the main problem for the Russians along the border was supplies. When they advanced, they found literally nothing, no food or shelter that they could use, and their supplies from the Murmansk Railroad did not regularly arrive. Actually, had the Finns cut the railroad, all of the Russians north of Lake Ladoga would have likely starved to death or eaten each other after the horses were gone. But this the Finns could not accomplish. So the Russians got food. Sometimes. But the coldest part of the winter is yet to arrive. In case you wonder, after the actions on the Raate Road, Vinogradov and the other leaders of the 44th Division are executed. On New Year's Eve, the German General Staff evaluates the Red Army's Finland performance. In quantity, it was fine, but organization, equipment, and means of leadership unsatisfactory, communication system bad, transportation bad, fighting qualities of the troops in heavy fighting dubious. The Russian mass is no match for an army with modern equipment and superior leadership. Adolf Hitler has a New Year message to the German people. The Jewish capitalistic world will not survive the 20th century. During the first week of the new year, up to 70 people starved to death in just Warsaw. Also, the curfew there for Jews is 8 p.m., and if you break that, even with a pass, you are liable to be shot. This week, cattle trucks, sealed cattle trucks, arrived there, carrying 1,000 POWs who have been locked in them for 13 days and sent from East Prussia. When they are opened, 211 men have frozen to death. Several more die within hours of their arrival. Some have been driven insane by the ordeal. And here is a German note to end the week. Yesterday, the 4th, Hermann Goering is given overall control of the German war industry. And so the first week of 1940 comes to an end, though the suffering in Poland does not, with devastating losses for the Red Army in the Finnish forests, a Japanese counterattack in China, and a collaborationist government being revealed before it exists there. But Wang Jingwei is to set up that government to collaborate with the Japanese. Chiang Kai-shek is currently collaborating with the Chinese communists to fight the Japanese. But what of the Chinese people? The regular average people, the peasants? What do they get? Well, they get the bloody horrors of modern war visited upon them day after day and year after year. Happy New Year. And in all of this is the conspicuous absence of US involvement. If you want to understand more about why the US was on the sidelines during these mounting conflicts, check out our episode about the origins of US isolationism in the 20s and 30s in our Between Two Wars series. It is right here. You should definitely follow the war day by day on Instagram as well. The link is below. And if you haven't already, join the TimeGhost Army at Patreon or timeghost.tv. The war effort needs you and every dollar counts. See you next time.